Hey everybody, it's Mike from Roxabox90 here. I'm back with another Double Masters video. This one is going to be the art of Double Masters, good, the bad, and the ugly. Double Masters is a masterfully done reprint set. But what makes it really stand out compared to prior Masters sets is the bringing back of iconic Magic artists for a new take on dozens of powerful iconic cards, and all these artists are experts. They understand the complexity of color wheel application, subtlety, lighting, perspective. If your favorite is not here, don't take it personally, please. Art is all a matter of personal preference and taste, and the goal of this video is to highlight what I'd consider the gems, whether beautiful, stunningly bland, or flat out, quote, ugly, comes from a unique collection of artist styles and takes on iconic Magic cards. And at the end of the day, art is supposed to evoke emotion and draw out viewers who want to look more closely, to think about and process what they have, and I think that many of the arts, if not almost all of them, achieve this within this set of 40 box toppers. So I'm going to focus on the three categories, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm defining these very loosely, of course. The good are my favorite pieces, the ones that I thought were the most striking, the most memorable, and the ones that long-term will be the most sought after. The bad are those where I liked the approach, or I thought it was an interesting approach, but I felt that they moved into blandness, into doesn't really evoke so much emotion, or it doesn't connect to the card itself. And the ugly are those which I thought were the most striking, eyebrow-raising, questionably beautiful at all, but I think they stood out. And I also tried to keep it where there was no more than 10 in each of these categories. I tried to keep it even to 5 if I could. And the last PSA is that I'm totally gonna butcher names, so bear with me. I'm sorry to all the artists if I get your name wrong. Let's start with the honorable mentions. Jace the Mind Sculptor by Jason Chan. The iconic art. It's the only one of the box toppers that is not new. Totally cool, in fact, because I thought that was such an iconic piece of art. It's been around for so long, and it's never had extended art treatment before. So I'm very happy they did this, but there's nothing special about it. It's been around for a long time. All the swords I thought were interesting takes. I thought they were all very distinctive, but I thought because they were distinctive, a lot of them, that there were little things that they hit or missed, or they didn't quite feel like they went together as a set. Unlike the Urzarama, we'll talk about in a little bit, it didn't feel like these all connected, they just were there. And the last one I mentioned is Mox Opal. I thought it was interesting, the flip from the Mirrodin Mox Opal that we got from Scars originally, and that they here have a Phyrexia version of it. I thought that was clever and cutesy, but I never particularly loved the hand holding the gem anyway, so it's not something I think I could do justice to talking about. So I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to start with the ugly, and we'll work our way back to the bad and to the good. So the ugly, the memorable children, but maybe for the wrong reasons. These are not in particular best or worst order. I'm just listing the 5 that come to mind. Wormcoil Engine by Carl Critchlow. His art style has been striking and distinctive for a very long time. He's really able to pull out the organic nature of it and how the machine and organic decay play together. A lot of Phyrexia art, a lot of zombie art. He really gets that down. Wormcoil Engine, I really like the original, and this one's kind of weird looking. It's really weird looking, but he still succeeds at getting that mechanical, organic feel, and it's really the perspective of the engine full on, I think, that takes away a bit from it versus the more profile of the original. And so it's striking, it's whoa, what is going on here? But it doesn't have the same punch the original did. Dark Confidant by Mark Zug. Now, Mark Zug, name doesn't need to be said. I did Guy's Cradle, Noble Hierarch, Batterskull. The dude's a great artist, no question. This Dark Confidant, though, is I really love what he did here. It is not a pretty piece of art. It is not a balanced piece of art, and I think that's the purpose of it. It kind of has a Lord of the Rings feel, more than the 2 original Dark Confidants, where you have the worm tongue, but the man bun this time. The worm tongue with the man bun. Older man is almost kind of pushed sideways out of frame. He's not the purpose here. He's not the one running the show. Everything's at weird angles, and you have this bizarre use of lighting coming from a bright window at the top. It creates a shadowed effect, but it draws your eye away from the figures in the room, even though it's only towards the upper part of the frame, which is really interesting. The use of it, I kind of wonder why he put that in there. And then you have the candlestick and the split between the cabinet. Everything feels wrong. Everything feels kind of off kilter. But I don't think it was an accident. It wasn't like they just, whoops, we just cropped it the wrong way. I think it's designed to make it feel that way, that something is really wrong here. Something is uncomfortably wrong, and it all centers around this clawed hand. The art itself, I think, would be forgettable if not for this wacky perspective that's applied to the picture. And so I really like what was done here. It's not a pretty Magic card, but it's a distinctive Magic card, and one that definitely is striking when you see it. Doubling Season by Ron Spencer. Ron Spencer also great artist, has done a bunch of stuff. In this case, Doubling Season just feels like a secret layer to me. The art is super digitized. It feels really cartoonish. I think that's the purpose of it. I almost wonder if they were going to use this in a secret lair, or they were thinking about using it in a secret lair and then they repurposed it for here. That's what it feels like. Too childish, a little too cartoonish, especially for a card like Doubling Season. So that's how it comes across to me. Definitely not the best piece, but it stands out because of how secret lair feeling it is, and it's so different than any other one in this set. Blightsteel Colossus by Wayne Reynolds. Wayne Reynolds is also a fantastic artist. This isn't a knock on the art itself. It's very cleverly done. I love that everything's kind of off kilter on a slant, and the color choices of the oranges and the steel. It's a comic book style, which I don't think works with Blightsteel. I know some people like it. To me, it's really off kilter. It doesn't fit the theme of the card. It doesn't really connect to the name, and it feels a little bit like Iron Giant meets The Incredibles. Doesn't quite work for Blightsteel Colossus, but at the same time, it's so unique among all the other arts in the set, and even Magic in general art. We've only seen this kind of thing coming up. His take comes so soon after Ikoria. Lightning Greaves by Mark Zug. This one is super garish. You have cleats on Lightning Greaves. What? If you look at all the prior arts for Lightning Greaves, it's always been about the subtlety of power, the agility, the lightning effect. Here you have very little lightning. You have these giant cleat looking like things on the boots that seem like the guy is driving force into the ground versus gliding over it in a lightning speed, but I don't think it works. It's memorable, but maybe for the wrong reasons. Now let's get to the bad, which, again, these aren't bad artworks. It's more that they're bad from my perspective because they fall on the blandness. They kind of don't fit with the card. They don't fit with the art. Something about them that's really forgettable. The first one, and probably the most egregious, was the Chrome Mox. Super forgettable. And for a Mox, that's unacceptable. You can't have a piece of art that's utterly forgettable and Mox. And the regular version is more eye-catching and more whoa than your box topper. Something's up. Academy Ruins is a generic sea rune. It's well done, but completely forgettable. And the original wasn't so much better either. There was something about having the weird rocks in the sea. This one doesn't stand out to me at all. Avacyn Angel of Hope. I love this art. I think it's fantastic. I love the color choices. I love the design. I love how she's ethereal and her legs are fading. But at the same time, you lose the fact that it's Avacyn. It could be any angel. And that, I think, is not... I kind of wish they had almost like a subtle harking back to her gothic nature. I know she's supposed to be a ghost and ascended, whatever, but even if they had something to give you more of her past and more of what sets her apart in this art, I think it would have really helped. Otherwise, it's just a really pretty angel, which I love, but it's not Avacyn in my mind. Noble Hierarch. The original art is really distinctive. I love the very subtle look down, upwards camera angle that was used to make the figure really stand out and stand as if it's exalted. This one just feels like a generic monk just kind of sitting there. I love the use of the bright colors on the right, the oranges versus the darker browns and greens. I think it creates a nice balance mix, and the art's well done. Nothing to make it stand out as a Noble Hierarch versus the original. And the last one is Sneak Attack by Mark Zug. We mentioned him, and I think that his use of subject is great. It's very clever. It's kind of cute how you don't even, until you notice the eyes of the dragon, you kind of don't get it because of how it has everything's like a gray-brown color. I think because of that, to make you like, oh, it's the dragon, I see now. Doesn't feel like a particularly standout piece of art. It just is kind of forgettable. It's a little joke, it's a one-off, but then it doesn't stand out. Which I think Sneak Attack in general has had this problem where none of the arts are particularly striking and special, and this one I don't think comes in to fix anything that way. Now we'll go through the good. The ones that I thought really stood out and will be unique and thought about, and they really do something different. We have the Urzarama with Karn appended to it. I think what Mark Tin did here was really interesting, and he did the original Urza power plant, so it's kind of nice. You get to see his take now. If he's given all three, what does he do with them? I really like what he did here. I love the use of a panorama. I love how he blended them together. I love how there's a strip mine hiding in the back, which is even more of a connection back to the original sets these are from. His Karn is going to be meme worthy and really memorable in the long term. Not everybody's going to like it, and that's perfectly fine, but it's a really interesting, different take on Karn as an art, and since they all play together, it's just something we don't typically see in Magic, and it was very well done. Exploration and Crop Rotation by Mark Poole, who's been in Magic forever. Ancestral Recall, Library of Alexandria, the dude is prolific, and his Exploration and Crop Rotation just remind you of how good he is. Crop Rotation is super clever, having the oranges and the browns and the yellows, and then the bright green coming in behind is just great perspective, really great use of color. And the exploration too is the color wheel going on. You got these yellow spots popping up, which opposed to the purple and the pink, they really draw one another out and stand out. When you have that kind of color, it's so beautiful looking compared to the first two versions of Exploration. It really pops, and I'm trying to get one in foil. I don't even do foils anymore, and I'm trying to get one in foil. It's a beautiful card. Now, Ron Spencer, we talked about Ron Spencer before with the Doubling Season, Crucible World, Infernal Spawn of Evil. The guy's done a bunch of fantastic stuff. Again, these are all great artists. I'm not trying to put down any of their work and say that they're bad at what they do. They're excellent. They all do really interesting, good stuff. It's just a matter of taste. Brainstorm and Mana. I don't love the Mana Crypt, but I think it's one of the more interesting takes. The Eternal Masters one is so forgettable. It's so bland and bleh. And this one is way more what I think of a Mana Crypt would be. It reminds me of the book promo a lot more than the Eternal Masters version. And I also think his Brainstorm is, wow. I don't love the clouds. I think they feel a little too digital, but the man and the rain dripping, and it looks like this quicksilver on stone really pops, and it's so blue. It's so bright blue. It's exactly what Brainstorm is supposed to be. Even among all the other Brainstorm artists, there have been so many. Number 4, I had Goblin Guide by Mark Zug. This is where I think it works. This is hilarious. I love how the finger points up at the mana symbol to remind you that it's not about the land, it's not about the map, it's about he costs 1 for a 2/2 with haste. That's why you play him. I love how how the map is on his head, which contrasts with his nose to make a triangle. It's just hilarious looking. I love how his toes he's already almost falling off the cliff. His toes are like gripping. He's like, I'm good, but he's gripping. So much comedic value here, but it's also just a very clever use of perspective with a card that's been done several times already. The arts have never been particularly knockout. This one I think is a knockout. This is the kind of card you want to put in your cube, you want to put in your decks, because it's just so great. Number 3, I have Thoughtseize. The original is by Alexei Bricolo, I think is how you pronounce the name. Stunning. Original Thoughtseize is stunning, and when Theros happened, I really never liked the Theros art at all. The original is the way to go. I actually have an original Lorwyn in my queue because I really wanted the original color palette and quality. Fantastic art. The Chuck Lugox version here, though, is really interesting. I love how it's purple and yellow, almost complete. They're opposing each other on the color wheel, so they really draw one another out and make for a really rich feel, but there's really not much other color here, which I think is great too, that this piece was stolen from the person's mind. I love the puzzle piece. The person is in agony. They're kind of losing themselves, and you have this bright light coming from their head, which furthers the yellow. The wash of the fairy stealing the piece is so dim, makes you see that from the person's perspective, they're losing something that's kind of fading away. It feels like fading away into shadow. Everything about this card really pops and stands out, and is such a minimalistic use of color compared to the original that originally I thought I wouldn't like it. When I first looked at it, I'm like, I don't really love it. But the more I've settled on it, the more I like it. Number 2 and number 1 were pretty close, so bear with me here. Number 2, Force of Will and Kalia the Vast, both by Scott M. Fisher. Kalia the Vast, I don't want to dig too much into her because there's so much to talk about Force of Will. Kalia the Vast is a very unique take. I thought the original was fine, but it felt very digital when you saw the original art. This one feels like Kalia of the Vast. It just sounds, the sound and the card name and everything about it is noble and epic and wow with this art. I also love the pinks and the purples and the grays, how they all work together. Great use of color, perspective, everything. But Force of Will is something else. And Scott M. Fisher put out a video of him making this art. I'm going to let him talk about it because he does it justice far more than I could.
Hey folks, Scott Fisher here, and today I'm going to tell you how I created the artwork for the newest version of the iconic Magic the Gathering card, Force of Will. So it was an honor to do it. Now these are my thumbnails that I sent off to the company. This is the drawing I did. This is the final tightened up drawing. It's a combination of looking at reference and drawing out of my head and in all of that negative space. Now these cards, as you saw in the beginning there, have a very certain format and they bleed out, but there's text boxes that are over them. So I had to be very careful where every single thing went. But I'd had my roadmap on my drawing earlier, which I had transferred down through graphite. I rubbed graphite on the back of that drawing, and then I redrew it on the front, improvising as I go. Some things are going to speak to me a little bit differently. And there's a little close-up of all the waves and the water and how it's all of these lines that are kind of just undulating and hitting each other. And building space. If you look like them in some color, this is why I did all the negative space, because I don't have to worry about the lines. I can go anywhere, and if it goes over the black, it doesn't matter because it's not darker than the black, right? Purple starts to come in the background here as I'm spattering around. Spontaneity comes in. That's where it's like, it's sort of happening live in front of us, and hopefully the viewer can feel some of the spontaneous things I do in these pieces. With my stuff, it's all about the silhouette. So I just kind of dove in and just let my imagination take over. I went ahead and did some more stylized, almost Saturn rings around them with the flames coming off of that. That seemed to work out pretty good. Have an area like a pair of pants and you put in the middle value, then quite often you just need to go a step lighter or a step darker to make it happen. Similar middle value is higher than the middle value of the pants. Then I'm able to react to that. But because the middle value of the armor is lighter than the rest of the outfit, the whole mass of the armor is going to stand out. And there's a little bit of yellow glazing, which I thought would come from that fireball that was happening over on the right-hand side. And this is when I just went ahead and committed to the white hand, the sort of glowing white hand. And you can see the waves. And there's just like not like around the hand in the waves, there's not a lot of like dark blue. I kept the values pretty close. So that's the final fireball. This is interesting. I went in with the white rings first. Look, I glazed them back with the orange, right? And then I'm gonna go into white it again, and then I'll probably glaze it back again. The reason I do that is the orange and the yellow is very transparent. If I put the white down first and then glaze over that, you can still see the flames where it's stained over the white. If I had just tried to paint those secondary flames with orange, if it wasn't opaque, it would have pretty much blended into what was going on everywhere else. And there you go, folks. That's the finished painting.
He was inspired by Therese Nielsen through color palette, obviously, when you look at the card, but he brought his own thing to the table here, and it really works. And don't have much more to say except that this card is incredible. Big Deluge by Richard Kane Ferguson. I love Richard Kane Ferguson.
My father was an antique and art collector, and so from a very early age I was exposed to a lot of antiques. Our house looked like a museum, actually. It is all traditional. Traditional mediums, either watercolor, acrylic, pen and ink, and oil paints. Mirfors was set up, like with a magic booth, and this was before the game hit, and he was looking for new artists. And so I showed Jesper my work, and it made an immediate connection with Jesper. He was like, this is terrific. And back then, they gave you a description of the character, and a description of, what the character did, and they kind of let you run with, the design concept. My last set was Shadowmoor, I believe, and I did Corlash, like Heir to Blackblade, and that was a great time.
I love his Blackblade Reforged, which is one of the more recent cards he's done. I love the art on that too. This is something else. It's so ugly. It's so ugly. When I first saw it, I said, what is this? But it's exactly that. It's this wash of worn away sea into browns, into melting one another. You have to really dig in and look at each individual figure in the frame to see the agony they're going through, the blending of one another into another, the skulls into, it feels so wrong, so twisted, so mushed together that when you first look at it, you think it's just a big washy mess. But then when you start to really break it down, you get to see how he weighted and balanced the different pieces, how one figure might be standing strong with the chest out, another figure might be kind of lying sideways. It creates a very uncomfortable perspective and uncomfortable color palette. Almost like you're looking at it through the rain yourself, as if your own eyesight is fading as you look upon these figures who are in this rain with you. It's super distinctive, very unique palette here, and most of the box toppers are much cleaner, but I thought this one was the most distinctive to me and really popped. It's an incredible piece of art. So those are my takes on these cards. I know this video went long, even though I didn't want it to go too long, but it went long. So I'd love to hear what you guys think. If you stuck around to the end, let me know what you think down below in the comment section. If you enjoyed this type of video, tap that like button and let me know if I should do more of this sort of thing. And as always, it's Mike from Rocks and Box 90 signing out. I'll see you guys next time.